Oh, hi there. I was just editing one of my podcasts here. I'm Dylan James Weaver, but you can call me Dylan, and this is the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. Hey, let's see how this thing sounds. Hold in! Okay, so it needs a little more work, but that's the exciting part, because you never know what you'll discover along the way. Oh, don't take my word for it, though. You can find out for yourself when you listen to today's Wad Fam Chalk Pod. Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm a Caucasian male on a podcast.
The one and only. And this week we are talking about episode 24 of Adventures in Odyssey. Gotcha!
Gotcha! Oh.
That wasn't me pulling a prank and saying we're not covering 24. The title of number 24 is Gotcha!
Is that with or without an exclamation point?
With an exclamation point.
Okay.
And the cha that they've got is Officer Harley.
Yes. Poor guy.
The real gotcha of this episode is that it was not re-aired.
Yeah, it got pulled.
Yep.
Which, I'm okay with that. We'll get into it.
Yeah. It's episode 24 of Adventures in Odyssey. I already said that, so I'm saying it again because I'm dumb. Mm-hmm. It's written by Phil Lawler, directed by Phil Lawler and Steve Harris, as a lot of these early ones are, and it has only aired once on April 30th of 1988.
Wow. Truly aged like milk.
They could have aired it on April 1st, but no. They ended the month. I will say, I don't know. Harley stuff, in my opinion, ages way better than most old Odyssey.
True. No, and I don't think that the Harley part about this episode is what makes it problematic by any means.
Like, if it wasn't for the Harley stuff, they would still air this episode.
Yep.
Whereas I think that that's, like, the least worrisome part of this episode.
You see, it's problematic to portray cops as not being able to finish their jokes. We can't have our children who are sponges absorbing cops not being able to finish the joke.
That's what those protests were in May of 2020, was about joke finishing.
Yeah, that's what the blue stripe in the American flag stands for. It's they're standing with all the fallen jokes.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, yeah.
Just two white guys talking about politically divisive issues.
Hey, you love to see it. This episode, as being episode 24, is only available on the Adventures in Odyssey Club, or if you happen to have a bootleg of like the early. It was never physically released, but if someone taped it off the radio in '88 and you happen to have that, you can listen to it that way. But if you want to get the gist, they remade this episode with episode 120. Which is hey, let's just rewrite this and do Kurt Stevens as the prankster and Patrick O'Ryan as the cop.
Okay.
Which is another Will Ryan voiced cop. He's just less funny.
Yes.
And
more Irish.
Correct. And then they used scenes of this episode in episode 266. It began with a rabbit's foot.
Oh. Weird.
Which is...
It wasn't like a flashback?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay.
So what they did is... That is the episode where Whit tells Lucy the story of the Bible Room's creation. And they very cleverly use scenes flashing back to this original episode.
That wasn't, like, considered canon.
Right. I mean, that happened in the show, but that they don't air anymore.
Yeah.
So they were able to do it, but it's like a fun moment of like flashbacks actually flashing back to something.
Yeah, which
I believe
is really cool.
Recollections flashes back to some family portrait stuff, or there's other times that they pull this sort of a stunt. But yeah, and the that is an episode that we very well may cover in our future.
Ooh.
Because it intersects with some Katrina and Eugene stuff that we've talked about doing. So
fingers crossed, rabbit foot in pocket that we get there. The luck of the Irish.
Said. Well said, Andrew. Anyways, that's all then that I've got as far as context goes. It's an early episode, so we've got a couple kids who don't really appear again here, being Philo and Sylvia, voiced by Nathan Fisk and Heather Sanders, respectively. They voiced other kids in early Odyssey, and that's it. And I guess we should address the fact that the very haunting Bible verse mirror is voiced by Phil Lawler.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying, and honestly, it suits his voice well as far as how it exists in my brain. Like,
yeah, and this is not the last time that mirror makes an appearance.
Oh, I'm sure.
Unbelievably, that mirror is in 9 episodes of Odyssey.
Oh, wow. What's the latest episode that it's in?
789, The Journal of John Avery Whitaker.
Wow.
Yep. An episode from 2016. So,
it's
still alive and kicking.
Okay, so it's an Adventure Club episode. Okay. And then it's in No Way Out. And then it's in an episode we covered the WE. How about that?
Yep. And another episode we covered by the applesauce.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the deal there.
Do we have a promo for this week?
We do not, because once again, it only aired on radio once, and unless someone has a cassette recorded promo from '88, I don't think we're ever getting that promo.
Then we have to
maybe it exists deep in the archives.
Deep in the archives. That might be a Hoobler special.
Yeah,
we can ask about.
Yeah, Andrew, go do an unpaid internship at Focus on the Family.
Take it down from the inside.
Yeah,
that's the play.
Just start dusting off old cassette tapes and find the promos.
Mm-hmm. I'll sift through all the incriminating files and bring down the company, and it'll look like I'm doing something great for religious liberty in the United States. But in actuality, I'm just trying to get very, very deep headcanon lore for Odyssey.
And there we go. All right.
Sounds like what I'm doing after graduation. I've got a degree from a Bible college. I feel like if they couldn't see the septum piercing, I might actually be able to get in just by faking it.
Yeah. Look, you can do the whole thing where you, flip it up.
Yeah, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Flip your septum piercing up,
Shave the beard.
Style your hair slightly differently.
Yeah.
Just ditch the floral shirts.
Yeah. That I have a much harder time losing.
Get less round glasses. I don't know. All the things that make you you. Just get rid of those. And then you can totally pass as someone that Focus would want to hire. And also change your name, because they can just Google Andrew Acebo and get a whole lot of this.
Yeah. That is the one part that we did forget to acknowledge.
Is that they do know who you are.
And I've got 160 episodes of my voice saying bad things about the company.
Yeah. How aware of Focus on the Family do you think, or how aware of us do you think Focus on the Family is? I don't think we occupy any of their thought space.
No,
but I think that there is a non-zero chance that people on their team have heard of us.
Yes.
And I would love to think that we've been brought up in a staff meeting.
I would absolutely love to believe that. And honestly, I think it might not be terribly unlikely. They're pulling from the community. Odyssey is very avid and encouraging fan interaction and all of that. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Wad Fam Chalk Pod got thrown around in a couple of writers' rooms.
Man.
It's just what we do.
No,
here.
I think that this is extremely unlikely. But hey, look, if you work at Focus and you're listening to my voice now, you know how to contact us.
Yeah.
Do that. We won't out you.
Bring it up. Please bring us up.
anything that you say in our email is confidential.
Yes,
unless
100%.
you tell us that we can say it on the pod. And, we might blur that line from time to time. But if you say, don't say it on the pod, we definitely won't.
Mm-hmm. So, all I just want is that sweet, sweet lore.
So look, I'm just saying.
And if you give me that lore, I promise that any fanfic I write surrounding it will be on a third-party account, not linked to my likeness.
All right. With all that being said, Andrew, how does this episode begin?
Oh God, I'm trying to remember. Oh, it begins with a Chris intro, talking about a rash of practical jokes around Odyssey, because I mean, I guess it's the 80s, and that's all the rage. You know, before Fortnite, there was saran wrapping toilet seats. So, you know. Did you play many practical jokes growing up?
Practical jokes, not my thing. I liked the idea of them way more than the execution.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I
like
thought
in that
practical
same
joke
way of
culture
like
is fun,
right? Or in like the same way that like you have a treehouse and like you pretend to be a spy.
Yeah.
Like practical jokes just kind of fits in that as like, you know, classic kid thing. I also watched The Parent Trap a ton.
Oh yeah.
90s remake, not the OG, and
Also
have
same.
a lot of affection for that movie, which
Better
has a bunch of
soundtrack.
practical jokes, and yeah, it
Top
just
notch.
so that stuff kind
Can
of
we
all,
record a Mystery Science Theater coverage of that movie for our bonus?
Dude, we can
content?
do whatever.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. We can break that up. I mean, we record that. That's like 3 weeks worth of content.
I would not stretch it out that long.
You don't want a third at a time? Oh, goodness.
Oh my word! But yeah, I feel like practical joke culture was dominant growing up, but that was never really a thing that I partook in.
So, I feel like for myself, I was very much at the end of it, in that my older siblings both loved practical jokes. They would do them to each other in the house all the time. They did it at church. Like, they're very successful in that area. And then I went to attempt one, and I pranked an adult who could not prank me back, and missed the point.
Is this the famous glitter pillowcase incident?
Yes, the infamous glitter pillowcase. I was in middle school. I thought it'd be funny. He was the new youth pastor. Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll just out myself.
Yeah, go the whole story, Andrew.
So, yeah, it was the first retreat with a new youth pastor, and I liked him. We were like pretty buddy. So I thought I could play a joke on him. A joke is a generous term for what I actually ended up doing. Originally, I was planning on just putting like shaving cream in his shoes, but I went for something a lot more nefarious and filled his sleeping bag with white glitter and dumped ladies' perfume on his pillow.
Now, Andrew, where did you get ladies' perfume at a summer camp?
Oh, I brought it from home, and it was a male sampler that I got from my aunt. So this is this is incriminating across my lineage. And there was no small amount of forethought put into it. Because, mind you, my older siblings and even my parents were like, yeah, this is fine. You're just going, you're going to have some fun. They didn't think twice about it, and then I did it, and I felt terrible. And there has not been many pranks in the church since. So I think I may have killed it.
To be clear, as I was going up through youth group a few years ahead of Andrew, it was very clearly established that there was just a blanket ban on pranks.
What?
Yep. And Andrew did not get the memo.
Oh, no.
So the prank ban was in place long before you came onto the scene.
Yes, yeah, no. Yeah, certainly. I thought I could work around it, because the person who put the prank ban in place had some admittedly bad experiences with pranks.
Yeah. Anyways, this has been Prank Corner on the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Thank you for joining us. Next week we will be talking about, again, saran wrap techniques.
So yeah, I find this all very interesting. So yeah, Philo put yeast in Wit's malt container. You know, the classic prank that every child thinks of.
I know. I'm going to infect this with fungus. It's pretty devious. I ain't gonna lie. Like, it's kind of smart. But I could not imagine a 6-year-old thinking of that.
The summary on the AIO Club does list him as a middle schooler.
Okay, middle schooler, perhaps.
So a tween.
A tween.
Thinking of, hey, let's swap yeast and malt, two things that I, a tween, am intimately familiar with.
Yes. Malt powder. You gotta love it.
And so, I also, how Wit figures this out so quickly.
Yes, yeah, I have no clue. I mean, does he even taste the shake?
No.
Because, like, I can understand if he made it, but he didn't. Like, so he makes the shake. What is it? Supposed to be chocolate,
It's
strawberry,
like a
banana.
strawberry banana malt.
Yep, for Tom.
It's Tom's favorite drink.
Yep,
And
hasn't
he
had one.
Spits
since
it out
kid.
immediately, and Harley goes, wow, if that's how you respond to your favorite drink, I'd hate to see how you respond to one you don't like.
We need like a clown horn for all the Harley jokes.
I mean, it's funny.
It made me laugh. I like clowns. Not, well, I don't need to
Andrew,
get into
big
that now.
clownophile over here.
Yeah. Let that be the take from the episode. Is Andrew loves clowns.
Oh man.
Goodness.
And so, yeah, then Wit's trying to wash it off with a spray bottle, and the spray bottle like explodes back into his face.
Yeah, I mean, does it even... what it sounds like is somebody tries it, and then somebody else tries it and is pointing it at Wit, and it just, like, sprays all over him.
This is a great lesson, I think, in early Odyssey of... It's not that the production is bad.
No.
Or that the script is that bad, but it's the combination of the two. It's like early Odyssey didn't know what the line was of what it could pull off.
As far as explaining visual bits through an
Correct.
audio medium, yeah, for
Correct.
Sure.
And so it overextends itself from time to time, and this is a very clear case of they don't know how to portray this visual bit in a way that we as the audience can understand, and so it just kind of like trips and falls. Mm-hmm. And they've done...
And you see that even with the malt powder bit, because there's just a lot of, like, Tom just kind of smacking his lips and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, it's like, okay, I get it. It doesn't
Well,
taste good.
he goes like, about to take a sip.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? Like, who are you? But it's a very clear thing of, like, not that the show could the show have tackled this scene in a way that sounded better and was less clunky? Probably. But I think nowadays the show has learned, just don't write this scene.
Yeah, certainly.
Like, the lesson is not, hey, we should have done this better. It's, we shouldn't have tried to tackle this sort of joke.
Yeah, it's just not really in their wheelhouse.
Right, but they're still, like, figuring out where those lines are at this stage in the show. And so, yeah, we don't hold it against them. It's funny.
Well, yeah, and it definitely holds the nostalgia of this era of the show because it is less polished in that respect, and you do kind of just get bits that don't work. So, yeah, there's definitely some charm to it, even if it is, like, in its imperfections.
Yeah, and Philo kind of starts cracking up, and then Wit kind of turns to him and is like, so all this was you, and... He's like, yeah, am I in trouble? And it's like, no, I love pranks as long as they don't, like, hurt people. And...
Good take, I think, maybe.
I don't know. I am very anti-prank.
Fair.
I just don't find joy in it. I also don't like messes.
Yeah,
and my experience tends to be, so, like, in this instance... They're all adults. He's a child. They can laugh about it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But I think for the most part, someone always ends up feeling crappy.
Yes.
Or it escalates and then someone feels crappy.
Yeah.
Like,
so
it's
you
either
feel baseline bad or even worse bad because both hands are
go
dirty.
back and then they go back and eventually, like, I feel like
it
will never end in everyone having a good time.
Yeah. Just by nature of what it is, certainly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm, like, not a prank guy.
Okay. my only challenge to that is very harmless pranks. Because I think if there is something to be taken from this episode, and it seems to be Focus's agenda, is that like, oh, well, I mean, some pranks are fine. You just have to be very careful that both parties are okay with it or in on the joke or whatever. Like, it's not to the detriment of the other person. And the prank that comes to mind was my brother used to break into the bathroom while I was showering growing up and dump cold water on me over the top. And, like, it sucks. It's annoying. It scares you, but I'm taking a hot shower. I warm up right away. I'm already wet. Like, that's good, clean fun.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I'm not against pranks entirely as a concept. I just don't want them anywhere near me.
Fair. So what you're saying is you don't want me to pour water on you while you're in the shower.
No.
I didn't presume you did, but I'm glad that we have that out in the open.
Yeah, there's a lack of consent in all pranks that I'm not a fan of.
Fair. Only consensual pranking. That is the official stance of the Wad Fam Shock Pod.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's Yeah, I don't think it typically is, like, I don't think it's like the end of the world, but it's just it's not my style of humor.
Certainly not. And yeah. I mean, I haven't played a prank in years, so I think it might not be in mine either, but I definitely have some nostalgia for it. Unfortunately, this episode is about more than just pranks.
Right, yeah. The pranks really take a back seat here when we find out that Philo's not worried about getting pranked back because he's got a lucky rabbit's foot
that was given to him by Connie after she read him his horoscope.
Mm-hmm.
Dun dun dun. Also, Connie is a Leo. Is that what we learned?
Connie is a Leo.
That makes sense.
I'll take your word for it. So cards on the table here, pun intended. I'm not, like, I don't have any fear of any of this stuff because I'm not a crazy 80s John Avery Whittaker.
Yes.
Like, I'm not like if you shake a magic 8-ball, you're going to hell. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't
You're
have.
trusting the fates.
I do not have this kind of a stance at all. That being said, I do just find this stuff very silly and do, like, in a way where I'm like, I never want to be making fun of another person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not out here to wreck anyone's fun or enjoyment or whatever. I will laugh at you behind closed doors if you put a lot of stock in this stuff. And I realize that people may feel that way about beliefs that I hold, and you know what? I can live with that.
Yeah, of course, yeah. As far as this stuff is concerned, I feel like it's mostly just projection of your experience.
Right.
In the same way, like, we see it a lot more commonly culturally with, like, Hogwarts houses, or which superhero are you most like, and all those classic BuzzFeed type things where they just take basic things and they project onto them. A horoscope has some of the background of it being tied to, like, cosmology and, ancient religions and all of that. Which I can see how it fringes on the occult, but I'm pretty sure as long as you don't accompany your horoscope reading by sacrificing a child, that, like, God's okay with it.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assessment. I do get it as, like, a, I think this conversation is very different if Connie is a Christian.
Yeah, certainly.
Where it's like, because you're being called to not, place your trust in the things of this world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, I can understand, setting your hopes based off of, what the newspaper says versus what the Bible says. But, like, Connie's not a Christian. Very,
Precisely.
very importantly here. And so I'm just like, she's not doing herself any harm. This is like, it's funny, and it's such an easy like thing for them to be mad about. But I don't think it's I certainly don't think it's a problem.
I'm more concerned as to where she got the rabbit's foot, whether it's a real rabbit's foot, and like that seems like a step above, to be honest with you. Reading horoscopes, whatever. I mean,
I don't know. My dad had a couple rabbit's feet growing up.
Fair.
Not like as like a tchotchke, but more as just like a fun trinket that was like sitting, in like, in a tray, like on an ashtray with a bunch of other like random trinkets in the office.
Yeah.
And it was like, we never thought anything of it.
That's fair. Well, and your dad also hunts and all of that. Like,
sure.
Very
there
more
was plenty,
common.
There was plenty of dead animals around otherwise.
Yeah. I think that's more so my shock, is the child walking around with a piece of the dead animal in his pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, like, I don't know, I wouldn't know what the timeline of rabbit's feet is. Like, were they in vogue in the late 80s? Because they seem like they are so much older than that, but I have no idea.
No, definitely older than that.
Well, I mean, like, they definitely started before then.
Yeah,
but I'm saying, like, were they still, like, a
Did
thing?
they make a comeback?
Or is this, right, or is this, like, the classic 80s Odyssey making fun of stuff from the 50s or whatever, or earlier? Yeah. Like, how relevant is a rabbit's foot at this point? I don't know. I truly don't. If you were alive during the 80s, let me know.
Certainly. I'll go home and ask my parents what their experiences were with rabbit's feet.
Yeah. But yeah.
So then Whit goes to talk to Connie because he finds out that she's been reading horoscopes to the kids and is very upset. And he enters talking about the awesome responsibility that she has to these children and calls her out on giving them horoscope readings. Obviously, Connie does not appreciate the air quotes significance of reading horoscopes to children.
This is the other point I think that's so crucial to me, is like, not only is Connie not a Christian, and so like, but also like, this is not a thing that, like, what does she have to go on that we would not approve of this? Like, she's been here from a day. She's from the heathen place of California where everyone worships the devil. So she doesn't know any better.
Yeah,
she's just like a kid in Odyssey who's like, yeah, I read horoscopes, so let me read them for these kids. Whatever, it's good fun. Like,
oh, but see, that's the Trojan horse for Focus's agenda, which we get to about the accessibility of the occult in secular culture.
Yeah. Yeah, can you believe that there's a game company that sells a Ouija board and that's just like out on the stock shelves? Any kid could go out and buy one of those and contact spirits. And
yeah, actually, I had somebody call into Target asking if we sold Ouija boards.
You do, right?
No.
Really? Mm-mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Target, no
mildly surprising. You can get them at Barnes & Noble.
Really?
They're produced by
like Mattel or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they're Milton Bradley, but
yeah,
same idea. So, fun Ouija board sidebar here. They were invented as a toy to be sold. They have no like
historical occult background.
It was truly like a thing that someone made to sell commercially from the get-go.
No wonder it's been featured so heavily in movies, such as Ouija.
But like, yeah, it's like, it's part of like this whole like, here's my early plug for the episode. There's a pretty good podcast called Ironwood Rhino where this guy who I really like, Matt Whitman, who used to be a pastor, actually, he hosts this podcast that is like about everyone's got like a story in their life that they can't fit into a box, that is just like a weird, supernatural story in some respect.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, hey, come on the show, talk about the podcast, the only thing you got to agree to is, like, I'm going to, like, poke at it, and we're going to try and, like, figure out what it is, because I don't believe that there's anything occult happening, but I find this stuff super interesting, so let's just chat about it and come up with, like, hey, what are the different options of what this could be?
Yeah.
And, like, I love that approach and that framing, and just like I don't think that, like, anything bad's gonna happen by, like, us talking about this stuff, nor do I think that, like, anything you did is, like, has your, eternal destiny in mind or whatever. I'm just like, hey, these are, like, interesting stories that a lot of us carry around and don't share.
Yeah, no, and approaching it with curiosity as opposed to judgment is very, very important. Just being like, this is interesting, distinct, different. I'd like to know more.
Right. And
not
so,
to condemn, but just to understand it better and, like,
so there's
share stories.
Yeah, there's a Ouija board episode. There's, sleep paralysis demons and alien stuff and whatever. Like, it's just, Bigfoot sighting, whatever. Like, just your strange noises in the night.
Yeah.
Whatever kind of people
Everybody's
bring to the table. Yeah. You tell your story, you game it out. It's fun. And I think he's got a cool perspective on things. So, plug for the Ironwood Rhino, apparently. That's what's happening. The
Ironwood Rhino. That's going to be easy for me to remember, I'm sure of it.
Oh, man. So yeah. It's just, like, laying into Connie. And it's like, what?
He calls the horoscopes the occult.
Which then is... But I think this is really interesting in, like, telling of the writing and whatnot. I don't know. This just struck me, which is, like... He calls it the occult, and Connie's like, no, it's not the occult. And he's like, well, you're putting your faith in it and whatever. And just like, because her horoscope said that she was going to get a promotion, and then she expects to get a promotion, and it's like, no, I actually might fire you, which, like, geez, 0 to 100.
Yeah, seriously.
But Connie's like, oh, look, like, I'm not a Christian, but I definitely don't want to be associated with the occult, which is such, like, a funny stance.
Yeah, exactly.
Where I'm like, I don't know, like, I only ever grew up in the church. What is the secular, like, feeling on the occult? What is, like, I want to have someone on who, like, grew up, like, just in, like, a normal, like, agnostic family who didn't have this experience that we did, and just be like, so if I say, like, something is the occult, what's your feeling on that? Because her response here, where she's very much like, oh, no, don't associate me with the occult. I'm like, huh. But I guess also, it is the 80s.
Yeah, I think, like, horror movies, all of that. I mean, that's really a lot of what the dominant media presentation is, to its detriment, I think. Because, I mean, the occult is, and looked it up on Google, the supernatural, mystical, or magical beliefs, practices, or phenomena. A secret society to study alchemy in the occult is the example sentence, which is, like, it's just the Christian word for not spiritual, or for spiritual not Christianity, essentially.
Right.
That's not an formal, organized religion.
I was gonna say it's like the modern, like, pagan.
Yeah, precisely.
It's like we can't say pagan anymore, so we said the occult, and I feel like now we're back to pagan again.
Yep, pagan, or
every once in a while I hear pagan from the pulpit, and I'm like, huh. All right. Yeah, I guess so.
It seems kind of applicable.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, it's just...
Well, and here's the thing that... Because I could tell that this is where the episode was going as soon as it was mentioned that Connie was reading horoscopes, that Whit was going to be upset.
Yeah, obviously.
So naturally, I ran to Whit's defense and thought, there's got to be some way that Whit can do this and it not be colossally bad, right? No. I was hoping that he would take the stance of, this is a place of business, these people, their parents are not inclined to it, like, we have to be considerate of our customers and everything like that. Because you could totally take that business.
Sure.
There's
a way to chastise Connie and kind of say, like, hey, you didn't know better. Don't do this going forward because of XYZ reasons.
For the workplace.
Yeah, sure.
It's not sexual assault or anything like that. It's just inappropriate. Like, you should not be doing this at work. Like,
right. In the same way that you're not going to swear in front of these kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't read them their horoscope. That just doesn't fly around here. And yeah,
but that's not his angle.
No. And then he does, like, he's like, she's like, but it's just fun. He's like, well, that kind of fun comes with a very large price tag. That price tag being, like, your eternal damnation to hell. And I was like, if we're living in this, like, Connie is not a Christian. So your belief is she's going to hell regardless. What does this change?
Precisely.
Is it that she's now infecting these children who otherwise would be Christians with it?
Yes, I believe that he sees Connie as an instrument of the devil at this point in time. Which is awfully harsh.
Yeah, it's just,
Whit doesn't know anything about horoscopes, clearly by the way that he talks about them and the way that he lumps them together with everything else.
Right.
Like, I'm not here to defend them. I'm very, I know more about horoscopes than a lot of people that would profess to be Christians do. And, I think they're kind of fun. They're kind of like star puzzles that we project onto, which is neat.
Right. So this is the thing I didn't say earlier, but I feel the same way about horoscopes and this is going to come as sacrilege to people, but I feel the same way about horoscopes as I do about Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. Like, they are the same thing to me. And ladies and gentlemen, Andrew has left the room, so I'm just gonna keep ranting about this on my own. But I think that those are just like, so like the joke about like horoscopes is like, oh, it's based on like what time of the year you were born, so it literally has like no. Like, there's no scientific bearing. And the thing with like Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, a disc, or any of those things is it's like, you're like taking a test which then tells you that you believe in a thing which you then just project onto.
Yes,
like,
exactly. Yeah, it's like it's the backwards math that is so close to the forwards direction that it is just forwards math.
Right. So was your storming out was what?
Well, okay, so you're
a counseling major, so yes, I imagine you have thoughts. But
the Enneagram is worshipped.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. And Christians love their Enneagram.
When you started talking about, I figured you were going to go with personality tests. You said Myers-Briggs, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of fallen off in the general public. There's not nearly as many categories and whatever. And then you went to the Enneagram, which is, I agree with. I do agree. The people listening... The Chalk Squad, that is the hottest take that has ever come from this microphone.
Look, guys, write at us, tweet at us. I do not care. I have not that I've burnt bridges in my personal life, but this is
guys, he's a 7. Just take everything with a grain of salt.
This is a point of discussion in a couple friend groups where I have friends who have been guests on this podcast, who are very into personality types. I'm looking at you, Hannah Woodruff, Christmas guest of past and perhaps future, who at one point in her life, and I'm sorry for outing you, but whatever, was taking personality tests, like just retaking Myers-Briggs on a monthly basis to track how her personality was changing over time. And I was like, boy, does this mean nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
And so I just I always roll my eyes when those come up, and people will probably be like, well, Dylan, you rolling your eyes at that is just an example of how much of a 6-wing 5 ETSJ you are. And I'd be like, sure.
Yep.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're probably right.
No,
but
yeah. And
probably reflects how I'm a Cancer as well.
I would say that's more Cancer than your 7-ness, but we'll talk about that off mic.
Yeah. Oh. So this is the deal. Is I think that all this stuff is just is just projections of... It's just us projecting, like, patterns. Because, like, humans are pattern recognition machines.
Yes.
Like, that's, like, a thing that we do very well. And I think that this is trying to project patterns into a more, like, psychological, emotional realm, where I'm not saying there's no pattern, but I'm saying, like, the amount of stock people put in this stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm also, like...
Well, people put a ton of stock in the Enneagram, which is, I think, why I had the reaction I did, is mostly just because it's newer than Myers-Briggs, because Myers-Briggs is a bit outdated. And obviously, astrology is, like, 2,500 years old, at least.
Yeah.
Like, the Enneagram, there's a bit more clinical basis as far as the personality types that do exist. But again, these, like, anybody with clinical knowledge would recognize the fact that these are incredibly broad categories that are applied to general situations based on limited results.
Yeah, and it's the thing where I'm like, I am happy that people have it and that it is a helpful lens for them.
Yes, 100%.
I don't find that for me. I think for a lot of people, at least in my conversations with them, they, see their typing and look at the qualities and but feel like they're being seen by that.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, look, there are words being put to my experience. Mm-hmm. Whereas my reaction is always, I feel like you are putting me into a box that I do not belong in.
I don't like this box.
Like, where I'm like, yeah, there are things here that apply to me and things that don't.
Yeah. Cool. It's like anything else. It's a lot more like a BuzzFeed quiz or something where it's like, which character from Mad Men are you?
But I'm like, I appreciate
not
that.
really like any of them.
I appreciate that people, like, find these things helpful and can see themselves in it, and that's beneficial to so many out there. Yeah. For me, I'm like, it's all the same.
Exactly. Very much so. And, like, it can go too far if you use your horoscope or whatever to justify being a bad person. That's always bad.
Right, but then you're being a bad person.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, So yeah, Wit then kind of steps it back and does acknowledge that she didn't know better, but after he, like, tears her a new one, which I hate.
Well, and then Connie thanks him at the end of the conversation, which I was like, oh god. Yep. I know that this is the way that every patriarch wants the confrontation to go, but, like, really?
Yeah. Connie's just like, oh, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I also don't want to be associated with demons, and I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Thank you, older father figure, for showing this to me.
Oh, please, tell me more about this god you worship.
Yeah. And, the other thing Wit says during this, which is wild, is he says, come talk... because Connie plays, like, you want these kids to be curious, so I thought that this would be a fun way to, like, for them to be curious. And Wit's like, come talk to me first before presenting them with any new ideas.
Yep.
It's just like, why would you spell it out like that, Wit? This is a lot.
You only get permission to vote if we're voting for the same candidate.
And look, like, I agree. Connie needs to defer to Wit, and Wit has a better lens on this because he's an adult and she's a child. Yes. I'm not saying that this is necessarily bad policy. I'm just saying it's hilarious when John Avery Whittaker comes out and says, come talk to me before telling the kids anything so that I can approve.
Fair.
And...
it's because he's just so troubled.
And so then Wit, like, withdraws into himself, and I was like, oh, okay, he's either going to A, go and yell at the paper, or B, start having them print Bible verses, because it's the point at which Connie's like, they're just accessible in the newspaper. And I was like, Wit's gonna, like, start a newspaper protest. But no, he does not. He weirdly later on will be like, that would have been hopeless. Which is, I find very funny.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's at this point then where we jump back to the prank portion of this episode. You remember the prank portion?
Remember the pranks? I didn't.
And
so
there's something with a milkshake again. And is it Tom who makes the comment about like unleavened shakes?
Oh yeah.
Which is
I prefer my shakes unleavened.
Yeah.
Which is very funny.
Yeah. Big fan of that. But then he gets an envelope and he's like, oh no, this envelope's gonna make a loud noise when I open it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
because he established in the previous scene, which we glossed over, that nobody's ever going to be able to prank him because he's the best and he'll be able to see it coming.
Right.
He gets an envelope addressed to him, says, oh, why would anybody write me here unless ... prank. Connie, you open this. And Connie's like, nah, there's no way. You're just being paranoid. Opens it up. Sure enough, there's a rattle inside there. Yeah. Sounds like one of them noisemakers or something.
Yep. And so, yeah.
And then there's a note saying that he will be pranked before the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
That somebody's coming for him.
Yep. And so now he's got to live his life on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom then goes and has a conversation with Whit.
Yep.
Who's withdrawn to himself in this back room. And yeah, Tom just kind of underlines this idea of like, we need to make the Bible more exciting. And this is where Whit's like, yeah, we couldn't even get a newspaper to print the verses.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, wow, small town perfect Odyssey couldn't get the Bible verses in their local newspaper? Come on, Dale Jacobs, step up your game.
Yeah, seriously. What's the point of having, religious
You're
influence?
voiced by Phil Lawler. You should very much be able to pull this off.
Definitely. Easily. Oh, man. Yeah, no, and then this is when Whit emphasizes the importance of churches and Bible studies because everywhere else does not want to acknowledge Christian values, which is fair because they're not obligated to.
Right. I do find it so funny watching, like, over the course of now over 30 years, this same argument of America's just got to get back to their Christian values. It's like John Avery Whitaker is making this argument in 1988.
Yep.
And
2018 as well.
Right. It's just this whole like, man, like the country's, so bad and needs to get back to the core of what made it great in the first place. And like, we need to go, have Christian values again and wear red hats as our forefathers did. And it's just like, yeah, it's such a one note thing.
It very much is. And I was thinking about it more in the opposite sense of how they've completely pivoted from one side of the argument to the other, where in this episode, very early Odyssey, we've got overarching parents that want to control everything that their kids are doing and everything that they consume. But now with Maury and all of that, we get God presenting well, what if I just stand over here and make sure nobody dies?
Yeah, we do have that. Love Maury. Love that direction for the show.
Yep, makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. I'm living in the glory of not having to cover a Maury episode in a while.
Yeah,
that is delightful.
Oh, Atticus Shaffer, you can do so much better, man. Think about all the cartoons you could be voicing that are not Maury. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. There are a lot of cartoons that are not Maury. Almost an infinite number.
Yeah. So, obviously, at the end of that conversation, Whit leaves determined to make the Bible more exciting. Hints as to what he's been working on this entire time. Then we cut back to Harley telling the joke to Connie, which he never got to finish, and then Philo comes in and interrupts him. He's still unpranked, but very paranoid about it, and Whit offers him water because he says that he looks thirsty, which is interesting, but is explained a bit later. Philo rejects the water because he is presuming something bad will happen, and then he lists off some absurd situation in which he gets humiliated because he accepts Whit's water.
Yep.
And Whit's just like, have it your way, and walks away, which is, again, very anti-Whit.
Yep. Yeah, I do. I like this thread of like Philo has been like on edge for a week,
avoiding the prank. Oh, and then him talking to Officer Harley, and Harley being like, "You know what you gotta do? You gotta draw your enemy out into the open. You've been fighting a masked man this whole time. You need to bait him out so you know who you're dealing with." Yep. Which is not terrible. Well, I mean, actually, no, that's terrible advice.
I mean, I think it's kind of fun.
I know it's funny.
Yeah. And so Philo's going to go set up in Wit's basement because apparently you can always go into the basement at Wit's End in these early episodes.
Definitely.
It's just, I love how much.
And yet they didn't discover the tunnel.
Yeah. They didn't discover the tunnel yet. They didn't discover the secret room.
Yep.
This is pre there being an escape room set up down there and Maury killing people. Like, it's all of that stuff.
What a storied basement.
Truly. It's
literal skeletons in closets.
Well done, Andrew. Well
done. Thank
you. And so, yeah. And Harley has been trying this entire episode to say a joke without the punchline getting stepped on. And it's very funny.
Yeah, it is really funny. I didn't expect it to hold up because you recognize that being the running bit pretty quickly.
The worst part, I think what kills the bit the most is that Chris says in the intro to the episode, everyone keeps stepping on Harley's punchlines.
Yeah.
And then we see it the rest of the episode. And I'm like, man, Chris, if you hadn't underlined it, that would kind of work.
Oh, it would be hilarious.
And so there's this moment here where he pauses before telling the punchline because he thinks someone's going to interrupt. Yeah, and then he launches into it and Tom interrupts. And it's great.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because Tom was one of the people that he was trying to tell the joke to earlier.
Yeah.
That didn't get to hear the punchline.
Yep. And then Whit introduces everyone
to the Bible room.
Woohoo!
Dun, dun, dun.
The Bible room happened. Like, it wasn't there from the beginning, and this is its origin story.
Yeah.
Bananas.
Bonkers.
And, they've got armor of God that you can put on, and an interactive Jericho that you can walk around and the walls fall down, and a mirror that you say a Bible verse into, and it, like, creepily says something back to you. What is the point of the mirror?
Something about looking through a glass darkly. And
right, but what is it? Like, I don't.
You can only see yourself truly when you read the Bible.
Right, but I don't quite get how that's fun for kids.
It's not fun for kids. It's terrifying. Yeah. Phil Lawler voices it.
This whole thing is I'm like I like the existence of the Bible room. I think it makes sense for Wits End to have one of these. I think it's weird that it's created in response to horoscopes.
Yeah.
I think that's a weird A to Z jump that I did not expect.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I don't have any history with this episode, so I can't say that I'd ever heard where the Bible room came from. It is very much an early Wits End staple as far as, like, before the Imagination Station and the Room of Consequence and all of those very elaborate kind of technologies came into place. It was basically just the Bible room, which had a handful of displays, like the David and Goliath display and everything like that. And it's interesting the amount of nostalgia that they put into the room, and just the way that it is a part of Wits End and central to what is being done at Wits End, but also very separate and not heavily featured. Like, we see Wit go back to the Bible room in, I think, Novacom at some point, where he's looking at the David and Goliath display, I think.
I was going to say the David and Goliath display is the other thing I, like, clearly remember from it. But yeah, it is. It's an early, like, not even Wit invention, but it's just like an early addition to Wits End.
Yes, yeah. And
they have the train room already at this point, but now we got the Bible room as well. Yeah,
it's when when Wit makes the decision to pivot completely into being a religious establishment.
Right, which is like an interesting thing to underline. Like, that it wasn't in that same way before.
It was a discovery emporium. I mean, trains are, not particularly religious, and beyond that, there wasn't much else other than the restaurant component and apparently pizza.
Right.
But, yeah, I can't say that I had really any previous understanding as to the origin of the Bible room before this episode.
Yeah, and then we get the reveal, Philo went down into the basement. He managed to dump blue paint all over himself. He comes back up and explains that he didn't get pranked, that he did this to himself. And then the main cast reveals that the four of them had made a prank, and their prank was keep Philo on edge for the whole week, thinking he's going to be pranked.
Give the child anxiety for a
week. Which is a funny prank.
Yeah, actually, it works.
Well, and it's like it's a good pull out. It's that whole the Arthur episode where the thing with DW is that
Arthur punches her. That one.
No. So oh man, I want to touch it. It's the Arthur episode where DW is like, I only ever had one hypothesis, and it's that someday you'd be begging to take me to the science museum.
Yeah.
It's that. Where it pulls out and it's like, oh, this smart DW.
Like,
right,
time.
Exactly. That's what they do here, and it's funny. And then in the Chris outro, we get Harley trying to tell the joke again, Chris interrupting.
No. Harley interrupts Chris to
finish the joke. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Putting a perfect button on the episode.
Yep. It's really funny. The punchline is the dog can't swim. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. It's an episode, I'll tell you what. I don't mind it being not airing anymore. I am upset as to the reasoning behind it.
Yeah. This also it feels like Harley is such a benevolent, I don't understand this episode does not show Officer Harley being bad at his job.
No, not at all. If anything, better at his job than some cops.
It just shows him making jokes and hanging out with the kids. Whatever. It's fine. But yeah, I mean that's what I've got for this episode.
That's what I've got.
I think we've done it. And please write to us if you have, if you're upset about my hot takes.
About the Enneagram, I bet you your email will be flooded this week.
It would be delightful.
Oh, goodness.
I cherish it.
I would like to take this time to mention the fact that I am a Sagittarius. I am a 4 wing 3, and an ENFJ for all those concerned.
Do you know your disc, Andrew?
Disc?
Okay,
he
doesn't know his disc.
Is that like your your moon sign?
No, disc is like a businessy personality thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think I've taken something akin to that, some sort of like a aptitude placement thing.
Yep. But yeah. Anything else you'd like to plug beyond your star sign there, Andrew?
Leavened milkshakes.
All right. And
Put some yeast in and tell me how it goes.
And I'm going to, once again, just say Ironwood Rhino. Good time if you are interested in stories of maybe the occult, but probably just humans being humans and seeing things where there aren't.
Telling stories.
Yeah.
Actually, I do have a take from this episode that I would like to share, and it's a nice positive note for us to have.
Okay, wow.
Hal Smith's wit has the best laugh.
His laugh is phenomenal.
Is perfect. It brings joy to my heart every time I hear it. It's big and breathy and adorable. Yeah, maybe we've mentioned it previously in the Connie conversion arc, but this episode especially, with him talking about practical jokes and everything like that, we get a couple real good wit laughs. And between emotionally harassing Connie, he's not such a bad guy.
Yeah, he's a charmer.
He's a charmer.
Yeah, and so with all...
Phil Lawler, stay out of my mirrors. That's my final take.
All right, good note. And with all that being said, we will be back next week for episode 34, Stormy Weather.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Gotcha was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.